The morning had no weight, and yet the house felt impossibly heavy. I drifted through it like a ghost, the scent of coffee and my husband's aftershave hanging in the air. The bed was empty, and the quiet between the walls pressed against my ears. I tried to remember the last time he laughed. The memory dissolved before it could take form. My mother-in-law's words were sharper than grief itself. "You can't raise this alone. Do what you have to do." She didn't ask. She didn't offer comfort. She kicked me out as if that could erase the past, as if grief could be managed with a suitcase shoved into my hands. I wandered the streets in a fog, the city moving around me like a scene I wasn't in. Eventually, I made it to the clinic. The receptionist didn't look at me, but her eyes registered me anyway, young, lost, trembling. I sat, hands clasped over the curve of my stomach, waiting. When the doctor entered, she didn't speak immediately. She watched me, steady and calm, as though silence could anchor the storm. I thought I would dissolve into tears, but nothing came, just emptiness. "Don't give up on your baby," she said finally. Her voice wasn't loud, it wasn't urgent, it was firm, deliberate, unshakable. "Come with me, I want to introduce you to someone." I hesitated. Suspicion prickled at my skin. People didn't do that, not in my life, not in my family, certainly not in hers. And yet in her eyes I saw a quiet authority I hadn't known I could rely on. She led me down a narrow corridor to a room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender. There was someone there, a midwife, someone who carried experience like a quiet armor. She smiled without words, nodded without ceremony. She didn't demand gratitude. She simply began arranging things, a safe place to stay, contacts for support, resources for after the birth. I wanted to look away, to retreat into the grief I had memorized, but the presence of someone who acted on authority, who made decisions that protected me without questioning my worth, made a small part of me inhale for the first time in days. I stayed because they stayed. Meals were delivered, a bed was prepared, paperwork was filed without my asking. My mother-in-law called once. I ignored it. The phone became a barrier between worlds, one that I could choose to cross or not. I realized slowly that this chosen family wasn't built on shared history or expectation. It was built on the quiet insistence that I deserved to exist and to keep my child. They didn't erase the absence of my husband, nor did they soften my loneliness, but they created a space where survival was possible. One evening, weeks later, the doctor returned. We stood in the pale light of the hospital room, and she didn't speak immediately. She just watched me, the swell of my stomach reminding her that life was persistent, stubborn. "Your living situation is secure now," she said. "The child has a network. You're not alone, not anymore." I nodded. I didn't cry, but the weight in my chest shifted, less suffocating, more deliberate. There was hope now, tempered with consequence. I had regained a small measure of control, but the past lingered. The loss would never leave me entirely, and the mother-in-law's absence would always be a shadow. I touched my belly. My baby moved slightly, and I smiled quietly, the first time since everything fell apart. Not triumphantly, not unburdened, but with a fragile acknowledgement that life could continue, that grief and care could coexist, that I could exist in the world with agency, even after being told I had none. The room was silent. The sun set outside, spilling orange light across the walls. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The authority had intervened. The choice was mine, and I had discovered, slowly, that chosen family could be more sustaining than blood. Hope existed in the softest, most precise way. Not a victory, not a reversal, not a promise of perfection, just life. And for now, that was enough.